Come here. Get off. Today we're talking to Sheree L. Greer, pronouns she and her. Sheree is a text-based artist and educator living in Tampa, Florida. She's a Yaddo and Ragdale Rubin Fellow, a Stray Lesbian Foundation grantee, and is the author of 2 novels, Let the Lover Be, a Rainbow Award finalist, and The Black Lives Matter inspired A Return to Arms. She also created a short story collection, Once and Future Lovers, and a student writing guide called Stop Writing Whack Essays. Love it. Sheree is the founding director of Kitchen Table Literary Arts, and her work has been featured in literary journals, magazines, and anthologies. Her most recent work, Bars, was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. That's big shit. Hey, Sheree.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us.
It is my pleasure.
So first, before we even get into all this other book shit, we got to talk about something that's not in your bio, but that's hella important to us.
Okay.
That is the fact that you are from the Midwest.
Milwaukee, stand up. Bruce
Land of casseroles.
Where you at?
Yay!
4 1 Feezy.
Get us a carb, get us a cream of something, get us a protein and some cheese. Bake it, you got a casserole.
Head. Let's do it.
I'm sorry.
There are black people in Wisconsin.
Yes.
They all live in Milwaukee, but we in that bitch. We in there. Right. We in there.
Yeah, so it's 3 of us Midwestern bitches
That's
here
so
on this
amazing.
call. It's beautiful.
I love it.
Yes, we had to take a minute to celebrate. But I'm wondering, how do you think that being born and raised in Milwaukee has impacted the way that you move through the world?
That is a really great question. It's interesting because, the funny thing about Milwaukee, Wisconsin is that the black folks that are there, it's like everybody's part of that, Great Migration tradition. That's how we all got up there. Mm-hmm. And so my grandparents are from the South, but everybody had moved up north. So I didn't get like summers in Mississippi or summers in Arkansas, where my dad is from, or anything like that. And so what's been interesting about being specifically from Milwaukee is how much, how it's super segregated, but also a lot of my experiences were very diverse in a way, like going to school and things like that. And so it's been interesting to see how that plays out now that I live in the South. And this concept of, there weren't very many places in Milwaukee where I felt like, not necessarily like that I didn't always feel welcome, but I was never made to feel like I didn't belong. And I feel that in certain parts in Florida or in the South sometimes, like I could feel in people's looks that they're like, who the fuck let you in here? And I didn't.
Which is some shit for anybody who's from Florida to say, especially right now.
Right.
God,
so,
who let y'all in here?
Yeah. And that was a foreign feeling to me, thankfully, because, I had really great neighborhoods growing up in Milwaukee. We had lawns and backyards and lots of parks. And I just remember being around a lot of different kind of people almost all of the time. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that, I don't know if it's probably helped and harmed me in a lot of different ways, but I'm here.
Okay. So something else we got to talk about. We were doing an interview with another writer, and she was like, yeah, I talked to my writing partner, bestie. And we were like, what? So the Fiona Zed,
yes,
we interviewed, and we absolutely love her. And we've learned doing this show that there are like little like packs of bad bitches that like write together and support one another. So I'm happy we got like LinkedIn on your pod.
Nice.
So yeah, but she was dope as shit, and we love her. So we wanted to ask, how does your relationship with her impact your work? I mean, I don't want to be too nosy, but at the same time, it's dope that two writers are good friends.
Thank you. It's strange because it's not something that I knew I needed, and it wasn't something that I was looking for. It's like we met a couple times in passing at conferences and whatnot, and then end up being in the same city together for a little while and just like really connecting creatively. And this was after my master's program. And after you finish school, you kind of just out there. And so it's like, you have like
so I gotta do something now.
You got all kind of cute like little cohorts and shit while you're in school. And then as soon as it's over, especially for being a writer, it's like, okay, now what? And so finding her at that time was just really awesome for me. And it's been like she pushes me and encourages me when I need it most, and sees strengths in my writing where sometimes I feel doubt. And that's just been really, really important. Like the work I'm doing, it gets on my nerves sometimes too. But it's, what friend / cheerleader / homegirl don't get on your nerves sometimes, especially when they know that you're not shining like you can be shining. Like they know it. They done seen you shine. And they like, I done seen you shine, girl. What is this? What the fuck's going on? And then you kind of got to be like, you right. And then okay. Fine.
That's dope. That is so great. So what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a magician or a mechanic.
Okay, you gotta stop. I mean, the first thing that popped in my head was that video of that magician that turned a dove into a Popeye chicken sandwich, and I was like, "Yo, that is exactly who you would be as a magician." Sorry if you weren't, but like, I'm like, "Yo, that totally seemed like some shit you do."
Yes, that would be me. That would be me. That would be me.
Okay.
I changed my coconut LaCroix into some whiskey, just like with magic. Like, I make some school loan debt disappear. That'd be my first trick.
Do I need to send you? Do you need my social? Or do you need the account number, my login? What you need?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I loved joke books, and I loved learning magic tricks, and I used to do like little magic shows for my family. And then I like working with my hands and shit, so I thought maybe I'd be a mechanic or something like that. But I don't know. I was always writing, but I didn't think writing could be a career, and I don't know why. I just didn't.
You thought being a magician could?
Dang,
I mean,
true.
No, but like,
no, that's true.
So if we get you drunk, you'll do magic tricks. Do you remember them? Like enough to
I remember
be
like
off?
I remember like 2 or 3.
Oh,
and they're not very impressive.
I mean, shit, they better than look. I can't do nothing, so you can pull that same quarter from behind my ear, and I'm like, ooh, she is amazing.
No, I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of writing as a viable career. Like, I didn't. I thought that I was gonna just be to get my magazine editor, and that was gonna be the thing. And it never occurred to me that that would also involve writing, or that I could change my career to the point where I could be somebody who sits at home and writes. It's not really presented as a viable, like, sound financial decision, maybe.
I feel like that's part of it, because like my mom, she never explicitly said like, no, you can't be a writer, you can't major in English. But like, as first generation college student, there was sort of this there was this,
what are you gonna doctor, lawyer,
it's like
doctor,
you had
lawyer, teacher,
you had just so many options as to what was going to be a viable career. And so, and I don't, I don't blame my mom in any kind of way. It's like our parents don't want us to suffer. And being an artist of any kind is still sort of aligned with like poverty and suffering.
Yeah,
and all
that
stuff.
starving artist thing is a very real stereotype and real reality for some folks.
So it's hard to see, especially if you have, so few examples where you're at. Like the internet and the explosion of technology has been helpful, but as a little girl in Milwaukee, like I knew that Black people wrote books, but I didn't meet an author until I was in college, I think, because I met my first author. So, how do you even know what that looks like or what that could be? So
then what did bring you to being a writer?
I was always writing. When I was a kid, I would write stories and poems, especially when I got in trouble, because I used to get in trouble a lot. So I wrote like a lot of apology, I love you, mom poems, a lot of flower metaphors about forgiveness and things like that. And then I kind of kept going, but again, I kind of took the back seat. I minored in English, and I mean, I'm a Virgo, so if I'm gonna put my mind to something, I'm a do it. Like I'm gonna do that shit. And so I majored in information technology and human resources, and God damn it, I was gonna get an information technology and human resources career, and that's what I did for a couple years. And then I met a writer friend when I moved to Florida, and I was still working as a consultant then, and she was a journalist at the St. Pete Times. And so we had like a writing group of 2, and she's like, when we exchanged stories for the first time, she was just like, what the fuck is you doing? And I was like, what you mean? She's like, what is you doing? Like, why are you not doing this? And she encouraged me to think about going to grad school and getting a degree in writing and making a run at it. And so I'm really glad she did.
Thank you. Thank you, friend.
Right? Yeah. Bonita, she passed away right before I went into grad school. Suddenly, it was crazy, but she with me every time. Like there's not a time when I'm writing that I don't think about her and how she pushed me into this part of this version of myself. So
that's dope as hell. Black woman.
Yep. Bonita Newton.
I mean,
I speak her name.
I didn't want to
assume that she was,
but when you said Bonita, I saw a very specific hairstyle and just a ness to her. Like I love it.
That she's us, yo.
Yeah, she's so us. She's so us.
Okay, Bonita Newton, we speak your name.
Oh.
Right on.
Well, I was gonna ask who or what inspires you to write, and I feel like Bonita's at the top of the list. What else?
Lately, it's been vulnerability and truth telling.
Whew, shit.
That's what I've been on. Begrudgingly, but I'm on it.
That shit's hard.
It's going to be good.
I'm on it. I started this new project, like kicking and fucking screaming. And it's only now, and I'm like 4 essays in, that I'm like, you know what? This might be the best writing of my life. You know, it's like,
wow.
But yeah, just being vulnerable and asking the tough questions. That's what's pushing me right now. And it's interesting that like for Let the Lover Be, it's almost bringing me full circle, because in Let the Lover Be, the main character is a alcoholic, and in my memoir work right now, I'm coming to terms in real life, in real time, with alcohol abuse and addiction in my family and a bunch of other stuff. And it's been really difficult, but it's been really good. Really good.
Wow.
Okay. So, what do your work days look like?
Man, these punk ass work days. These work days are I don't know. So I start back to the day job on Monday. I teach at a college in St. Pete, but I'm teaching all online, so I'm thankful for that.
Oh, thank God.
But most days I like to get up and get my day started. Not too early though. Good 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Oh my God. Ugh. Sorry. I'm like, that's
You
early.
get up at 5?
No, Erica gets up. What time you get up now, E?
What time you get up?
Well, so what had happened was I usually wake up at about 5:45, 6 o'clock.
Oof.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I lay in
don't-
bed scrolling TikTok for easily 45 minutes before I get up.
You
and
still up though. Your eyes is open.
I don't wake up before 9. I just
9?
don't. No, bitch. When
Oh
y'all
my
be
God.
texting me, that's why I don't answer your text till like 9:30. I be asleep. But
That's
also,
the sweet spot, though.
Yeah, I've been up until like 2:30 every night this week working. So
Okay.
a bitch is tired.
Okay.
I'm doing my best.
Okay. I can't stay up super late like that no more. That used to be my shit. Like I used to stay up late, writing, reading, bullshitting. And now I be like, it's 10:30. I got to go lay down. Like, and it probably has a lot to do with getting up at 7:30. And you know, turning 40 soon. But
Yeah.
that shit's real. But
It's very,
yeah.
very
My
real.
body, my
Hey.
body has been so sore, and I'm
Hey.
like, this must be all the meds I'm on. Or I'm blaming it on everything else except for the fact that a bitch is. I look down the street and I'm like, who's that? Is that you, 40, coming over here?
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. I turn 40 next month. I was
Oh shit! Happy
like
early birthday.
Thank you. Like I think it was last year sometime. I was like in like this. I was at the grocery and these teenagers was like they was having a good time talking, fucking with each other, stuff like this. And then one of them, said something, and then the other dude was like, "Don't be cussing in front of that lady." And I turned around like,
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
Who
lady?
here?
Where the elder at? Bitch, it's you. It is you.
Oh, no. Is it?
So yeah.
Little fuckers. I would have tripped.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Get ready.
Don't
Get
be cursing.
ready.
Fuck you. And then push him down.
For real.
Jeez, oh, peas.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean the work day is easy. I mean it's reading, it's writing, it's going outside a lot to take breaks. Watching a little TV, a little too much Netflix and things like that. I don't know how people supposed to get shit done with all these, and how
Netflix
people be
is right
watching
there.
all this shit too. Like when I get on Twitter, people like, "Oh God, this is so great," blah blah. I'm like, "Bitch, you watched all 7 episodes already? That shit came out yesterday.
I don't need you
That's
judging
like-
us.
It's like 7 hours of TV,
I don't need you judging us.
man." I aspire, man.
I do too. I love
I aspire.
TV, but
I
I just
wanna
never have
watch it.
enough time to watch it. So you told us about your days, which actually sound pretty damn good. Like I ain't hear no, neighbors is getting on my nerves
No.
or
I mean, it's I live in East Tampa, that is very slowly gentrifying, but we watching it happen. I got a loud ass dog. He's a wiener dog, but he barked like he's a damn Doberman pinscher or some shit. He barks a lot, so I had to make sure I put him away for this. But other than folks on dirt bikes and shit, and the occasional vintage Chevy rolling down the street, playing a chopped and screwed version of
I love it.
It's all good. It's really all good. It's been interesting because I didn't teach at all this summer at the day job. And people, when I post online lately, people have been like, "Oh man, Sheree, you look so great. You look so great. Oh man, what's going on? You look so good." And it's like, it's because I ain't been at work. I ain't been at that job. And what's interesting is when y'all had Mahogany Brown on, right? She was talking about that shit. How like people don't realize just how much you're pouring into other things. And it's not until you make the decision to stop that you actually get to almost go outside of that regular life and say, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
I've been stressed. I've been tired. I'm running around doing this, that, and the third. It really make you want to kind of take stock and figure out, like, how can I make the thing that I love most the thing that I do most, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got that space to breathe this summer, and I hope you get more of it in a way that works for you. Yeah,
I am working on it.
So your book, A Return to Arms, centers the Black Lives Matter movement, as we said in your bio. I'm wondering, what lessons do you think it holds for us right now in this moment?
It was really interesting watching this moment unfold, because this time we saw more white people getting in on the situation. Yeah. And part of what my novel wrestles with is who gets to protest, who gets to be an activist, who gets to be a part of what efforts and in what capacity. And what drove the book primarily was me sitting at the intersection of being Black and queer, right? So there's a lot of there was a lot of like Pan-African type groups and things like that, like locally grassroots, that I could go because I was Black. But if I brought up any concerns about like Black trans women being murdered or anything like that, you would see people's faces change. You would see a different kind of judgment, a different kind of energy enter the room. And so what the book deals with probably more than anything else is like all of those intersecting identities and how do you find a place that fits for you to do whatever you're being called to do in a particular moment. And there's a scene in the book where a white person walked through one of the protests and wants to be involved and is kind of discouraged. And there's another part in the book where, you have to shut down certain parts of white conversation that aren't conducive to our ends or our goals. And so it's been interesting to see the posturing. It's been interesting to see some of the, like just already a lot of the energy has been drained, right? It was commercials, it was statements, it was emails, it was banners everywhere. But it's like, what do you have in you for the long haul? What is beyond this moment? So that's what I've been thinking about mostly. And that book, I wrote that book in 2016. So it was shortly after Trayvon Martin. It's inspired by a similar shooting in South St. Petersburg in Florida. Tyron Lewis was shot and killed by a police officer who, was not fired, was not charged. And part of what made that book so difficult was like that case happened in 96. So it's like we're looking at 20 years and then another 10, another 20, and then 30, and then 50 years ago. And you can go back and back and back. And it could be depressing and demoralizing when you start looking at the cases and you start stringing them together, and they make this tapestry of Black pain, and we got to find a way to wrap ourselves in something more hopeful and something more something that actually reckons with the moment right now. I think.
Well said.
So, side note, we want to include this in the thing, but when we're looking for books, Kenrya kept saying, I found this really great book, and for whatever reason, we didn't use it. And so then I'm like, hey, I found this book for season 3, Let the Lover Be.
Yeah.
It was like, let me shoot it to you. And she was like, oh shit, this is the same author. So yeah, you've been on our radar for a minute.
Yeah. The only reason we didn't, I was looking at Return to Arms, but it didn't have a long enough sex scene. That's the only reason.
It's not as sexy. It's not as sexy. But my wife said of both books, she was like, why your main character always got to have a jump off in the book? And I was like, what?
You trying to say?
I was like, what? And she's like, in both novels, it's always a jump off other than the main bitch. And I was like, no, it's not. And then I was like,
like,
oh, yeah.
Oops, Mommy.
Jump offs keep you young, man.
Or they put extra miles on you. I don't know.
Dang.
Depending on how problematic said jump off
That's
is.
true. That's true.
But the problematic
you gotta qualify that. You gotta qualify that.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so back to bed. Okay, so tell us about your latest work, Bars.
So I wrote Bars. It was kind of one of my first times, like, kind of just trusting the process and trusting my voice, which I'm not always the best at, that I'm getting better at, thankfully. But I was just having all these memories about bars and how they've been formative fixtures in my life. I remember I start the piece with the first bar that I went to with my dad. I used to go with my dad when he used to go cash his check, and he'd buy me burgers and, you know, have his drinks or whatever. And then I just started doing this kind of timeline of bars, like literal bars, and trying to remember what they looked like and doing a little research to see if they're still standing. What do they look like now? And then putting myself in that place again as almost like tick marks on a timeline of me going from being that kind of shy, uncertain kid to through my teenage years, through young adulthood, to you know, my 30s, where I kind of slowed down a little bit and began to think about my relationships with others, and my relationships with lovers, and my relationships to alcohol. And the piece kind of just wrote itself after that, I think.
Wow. That sounds amazing.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I'm
Also,
really
let's know you were a
excited
kid being taken into bars.
Yes, I was.
That was a while
There's
back.
that. Also, hearing, so I had
Start 'em
no
early.
idea. I had zero idea what bars is gonna be about, but I'm like, I'm such a nigga, because when I heard bars, I was like, oh, bars, like
Rapping.
like rapping.
Die line.
Exactly. So I'm in. Yeah, that's my only issue.
Nigger.
I don't know. The piece got some lyricism to it. I could probably
I'm
get a
sure
beat.
it
I can get a beat.
I would give you one, but you all will laugh. So,
Yep. And it would be great. So speaking of bars, the book that we read on the show, Let the Lover Be, stars Kiana, who is a woman whose addiction and demons often push her to make less than lovely decisions.
Yes.
Why was it important for you to tackle addiction in this book?
So I started writing a book. It's not my first novel. It's my first published novel. And so my first novel, I shopped it around. It kept getting no. And so finally somebody was like, well, do you have something else? And I was like, no. And then Fiona was like, yes, you do. Remember that stuff you was writing when we were in New Orleans? See, I told you she'd be getting on my nerves. So I was like, what stuff? And so she had pointed out some things that, because we went to a conference in New Orleans together, and we were just doing like writing prompts throughout the day to take breaks and shit like this. And so she's like, some of that stuff you wrote, that could be a book. And so I sat down and I started writing it. And as Kiana was coming to me, I was like, man, what a fucking asshole. Like, as I was writing her, I was like, she's got some issues. She's mean. She drinks too much. She's irresponsible. So she's not me exactly. But in writing some of her scenes, I recognized pieces of myself. And it was in writing that book that I began to think about whether or not I was an alcoholic, and if I had an abusive relationship with alcohol.
Wow.
And so I stopped drinking because there was a scene that I was writing and I couldn't write it. I was having trouble with it. And so I went to go look at some journals about it, because I journal all the time. And it was in that moment that I realized, like, I be drunk more often than not. And so I stopped drinking, and I wrote the rest of the book sober. And I knew that there was something to, like, Kiana's not an asshole because she's just a terrible person. Like, she's got some shit going on, some things that she refuses to deal with, some ways in which she doesn't treat herself well and doesn't love herself. And it affects everyone around her. Even she's oblivious to the people who do love her and do care for her. And so as I was writing, I just got really sort of obsessed with figuring out what her deal is. What's up with you? What's up with you? And so then she started telling me, and I got sad for her as I was writing, but she didn't want my pity. She wanted to try to come out on the other side. And so I just kind of let her have a run of the pages.
So what I loved about the book is that, like, Kiana was a hot mess, but I think we all saw the hot mess in ourselves, in her.
Oh, nice.
And it was some parts of it were very difficult to read because, like you said, like, she didn't want your pity. And I think we've all been there where we're like, I got shit I'm dealing with. Let me deal with it. I don't need your help. Something about that character stuck with me. I picked it up and just could not put it down because I was like, I just needed her to, I wanted to see how this developed.
Yeah. And it was nice too to be able to have a Black woman who is, quite frankly, an unlikable protagonist. Like, that is a thing that is pushed on us all the time, and white men get the privilege of being in that space, right? You got your Tony Sopranos, your Don Drapers, your fucking Walter Hartwell Whites, who get to be complete fucking assholes to everyone. Breaking Bad. Who get to be complete fucking assholes to everybody, but we're still supposed to love them at the end of the day. And we do, right? Because that's what we're conditioned to do. But Black women never really get that space. Like, how often do we see projects in popular culture where Black women get to be assholes and not be dismissed as bitches or get their comeuppance or whatever the hell, and actually get to have some growth and some love for themselves? That's
one of the reasons I loved, and I'm gonna miss, How to Get Away with Murder so much. Like, Annalise Keating to me was this, was this flawed, powerful, beautiful character, and she did do things that, might have cut some folks deep or even cut herself deep. But, like, at the end of the day, we found ourselves following her and cheering for her and wanting her to make it. And I agree with you. I wish we could, I hope that we continue to see more complex characters like that. Give us a chance to have those moments. Like, I'm watching I May Destroy You. That same kind of deal where it's like play with those lines of, good and bad, or love and hate, or like blur those lines a little bit, because life is messy as fuck. I you said it best. Like, when you see your kind of mess on the screen or on the pages, it's, you're not alone. We're all messy as fuck, just trying to do the best we can.
Trying to figure this shit out.
Yeah.
And we all deserve redemption.
Okay, so speaking of hot mess, when we meet Kiana, she is like just reeling from heartbreak. Like, I'm like, girlfriend, put on some fucking boots and bounce back. She's not a fucking boot type of character. Well, she might have some fucking boots, but not the kind of thing. Anyway, so what do you do when you're trying to, like, pick up pieces and moving on? Like, what's your bounce back? And it could be like something like profound, or just something like, I listen to Jeezy and ride out on these hoes.
Man, I don't feel like I've had my heart broken that many times, and I don't say it to be like I'm it's not because I'm strong. It's because I don't let people in, which is a different kind of problem. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. That
and
vulnerability.
Right. So I'm not often vulnerable. And so I've always been the kind of I'm out before you can hurt me type person. Or
Same.
You hurt me, so guess what? You no longer exist in my universe. And I'm like done. When people talk about like being friends with all their exes and all that, like I don't have a lot of that. I don't even call many people my exes because I'll also be quick to be like, oh, we was just fucking. So I don't know why.
Like, now is this you in the Christmas photo?
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I haven't had like romantically, I haven't let enough people in to have like a process, I think. But in the times that I have been hurt, it's mostly, drinking something and doing somebody. Like that had always been my go-to. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, now when I think about disappointment or letdown, rejection, things like that, just trying to find a healthier way to deal with it that, doesn't involve 3 bottles of wine and some stranger. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not healthy. That's not what.
Which, and I'm sure your wife would be like, "Word."
Oh yeah, true. True.
This what we do it.
But I was just so upset. I don't think she arrived at that. I was just so upset. I needed to do somebody. I don't think.
No.
That won't roll. That won't roll no more. Mm-hmm. Kiana was on one though. She was on one.
Yeah, but we were with her the whole way.
We was with it's just the way you wrote it. Like it's just I could feel her grasping at just grasping for that relationship, that not even that relationship, just closure. Like what the fuck happened? Like I don't get it. It was just. Yeah, it was a beauty. It was a beaut.
But you know what's interesting, and y'all could speak on this a little bit. Like, I was also thinking about after having written the book and then like read it back through drafts and stuff like that. Like the whole concept of closure, right? I don't feel like Kiana got closure from her situation. Like the closure is internal and not external.
Yeah.
I don't know that you ever really can. I mean, I don't know. For me, the idea of closure has always seemed kind of foreign, partly because, like you, I've always had trouble with the vulnerability thing. So I'm like, fuck you, block you, I'm done. But also kind of like, all right, there's something that led us to this place where we have some fundamental disconnect, right? That makes it so that we are not together. And the likelihood of us being able to come to some, I don't know, eye to eye moment, to do some, autopsy of what happened and have it come out. Right. Yeah. Right, like it just doesn't feel like it's something that I want to put the energy into. And so it has really come down to, especially like with therapy and like getting my own shit together, dissecting that stuff for myself, right? Like what role did I play? What role could I have played? What am I going to take from this as I move forward? And what am I going to leave behind?
Right on.
And I don't think that somebody else can give me that, but that's what closure feels like to me.
Yeah. I like
that.
that.
For me, it's more of a reconciliation. Like it's not even I think I used to use in the past, I have been in relationships where I was like, okay, I'm going to seek closure. It was more just, I just wanted to see him and fuck him another time or something. Like it was, it's bullshit. Like, cause real closure is just me coming to, reconciling that this ain't work. It ain't your fault, or it was your fault. Just kind of doing like Kenrya said, just a personal autopsy of this is what happened, come to grips with it, what do I do differently, if anything, and move forward. But
you
close it. You close it. Like, oh, I'm looking
Exactly.
for closure. No, you close it.
Yeah. And like without like we try not to spoil books because we want folks to read them. So without giving too much away, like I don't think she was gonna get that.
I don't think so either.
Okay, we'll talk I want to talk about the end of the book, but we'll talk once we stop recording.
Number one question be like, where the fuck is Michelle? That be the question.
Yeah.
So another thing that happens in this book is that there is a character who really goes out of their way to save Kiana. But Kiana don't want to be saved.
Don't save her.
Save
She
her.
don't want to be saved. Don't save her. Yes.
Exactly. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're trying to save hoes that didn't want to be saved? I want to be saved. Is should I save her? I want to be saved. I'm sorry, y'all done took me
Don't
back
apologize. Don't
dancing at the skating rink.
Don't apologize.
This is what happens when you put three 39-year-old bitches from.
I love it. Yep, exactly. That's what you gonna get. That is what you gonna get. No, I don't think so. Cause I was never into like project relationships either. Like if I can see from afar that you fucked up, I'm not signing up for that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not. I try not to, because I feel like you could like I was thinking, like, let's say I had met Kiana, like hanging out with her a couple 1-2 times, you could see she got some shit going on. And if it was a date and you're not involved and there's no like, I mean, you could slide her an AA card or something like that, but I wouldn't find myself like getting involved with somebody that needed saving. And that I'm pretty sure that has to do with, my own trauma and things like that. Like I'm trying to get shit right myself. I don't really feel like I'm in a position to be trying to, I'm just holding on to the life raft myself. I don't know that I could be, throwing life vests out. If I got a life vest, I need to wear that shit because I be drowning sometimes. You know what I mean? So I'm not a saver hoe. That ain't really been my thing.
Yeah. Well, good. Okay, so question, like you set Let the Lover Be in New Orleans, which in my mind is my favorite city. I've never stepped foot there once, but like I love food, and so I'm like, New Orleans is where I belong. And reading your book just made me fall in love with it even more. So my question to you is, what's your favorite city?
Ooh, that's tricky because I kept feeling, so when I left Milwaukee in 2002, I have not been back to live. Like I've been to visit, but I hadn't been back to live. And what's crazy is I had this idea that I was going to go to like different cities. And when I got to one that felt like this is the shit, I love this fucking city, I don't want to leave, that I would move to that city that made me feel like that. But what's happened is I go to a new city and I'm like, this place is cool. I like it. I could live here. And that's always my thing is I could live here, but I haven't been to a place yet where I've been like, I want to live here. This place is off the chain. So it's like I could. So, I mean, I didn't envision myself landing in Tampa, really. But I've been here, I'm a decade now. But, you meet a wife and buy a house and, you're like, you planted some damn roots at this point.
This is where we are.
But, the cost of living is low. It's an international airport, can do it. I think, though, it would have to be a tie between Chicago and New Orleans. Like, I really, really love New Orleans. Like, I really do. And every time I go there, I love it again for a different reason. I was nervous about setting the book there, though, because I didn't want it to be like, I don't live there. So I didn't want to make, so like even Genevieve, the character who is from there, she had been gone and been back. Because I wanted to try to be as authentic as possible. And when I talk to people from New Orleans, they be like, first of all, ain't nobody in the quarter like that. You know, like that's for tourists. And so I was like, okay, well, what if my character is a tourist? What if my character is there for the reasons you go to New Orleans, which is to be in the quarter and to eat and to party and all those things. So I really love New Orleans. But I really love Chicago. Chicago's another great city, too, if you love food.
It is.
If you love food, that's, yeah. So
it's just that fucking hawk.
Yeah, which, you know, I clearly remember my last winter in Chicago. That's where I went to graduate school. And I was on the bus stop, and the water main had burst along South Shore. That's the street that I lived on. And the bus was going to be delayed, and I felt in my memory I burst into tears, but I don't know that I did. But when I think back on it, I burst into tears, and I was just like, it was just so cold, and it felt like I was being punished.
Yeah,
and it wasn't fair, and I was like, I can't do it. It was 2007. That was my last Chicago winter. And I'm like, I just can't do it. This feels like a personal attack at this point.
Like, what did I do to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It does.
But if you go in the summer, Chicago in the summer, in the spring,
it's beautiful.
Stop. Just stop.
Yeah, no, Chicago's summers
Chicago.
and springs, like, treat you, they make you feel so good that they're like, I'm about to beat your ass. And, you know, you like, you forget about it. You know, it's kind of like when women go through childbirth and they say it's so painful, but once you have a baby, you forget. That's what Chicago's winters are.
That's awful.
I mean,
no, it's kind of like
a good analogy.
It is like that because it's real. You'll fall in love, and then I guess that love has to sustain you through the winter. Because then it's not nice at all.
Ain't enough love for me.
It's not. I don't want to do it. I don't want to shovel no snow. Nothing.
One of our girlfriends her birthday is in February, and she wanted us to come to Chicago.
In February?
Our dumb asses went. Our stupid asses went, and we was like little young thoughts. So we had, little tiny dresses on, thinking we cute.
Fuck, I forgot about that.
The fucking worst. I tell her all the time, like, look, bitch, you know I love you because I did this shit.
In Milwaukee and in Chicago, especially when I was in undergrad, me and my best friend Adela, she's Jamaican, and so she would always have Ray and Nephew, and so we would do like 2 shots of Ray and Nephew before we went out. We called it our overproof coat.
Oh shit!
Because it just warms you from the inside out, and then you can wear your thigh outfit out, and it's all good.
Yeah,
just got a little.
That was actually my strategy when I lived in New York.
Yes,
going out in the winter.
Yes.
Like as soon as I would hit the club, I would get some. What was it? Southern Comfort at the time.
Oh, nice.
And it warms you up.
Kiana drink Southern Comfort?
She sure did. She sure did.
Shit works.
She warms you.
Yes.
Okay.
I hate that we're at the end of this. This has been lovely.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Really great time.
Thanks for coming on.
I feel like cousins, man. I think
we are.
Yeah.
Because we black from the Midwest.
Yeah.
My family just stopped in St. Louis and kept on going to Milwaukee.
When will the people be able to read Bars?
Bars is in a literary journal called Fourth Genre.
Oh, dope.
So you can order that. And I also, I think they have a copy of it online as well. But it's in Fourth Genre magazine.
Okay.
Dope. Okay, so we'll put a link to that. And do you have anything else coming up that you want folks to know about?
Yeah, I'm actually, when I was in Chicago, I was part of a storytelling company there called Second Story, and they have storytelling event coming up on September 12th, and I'm one of the featured storytellers. So that's at Second Story Chicago. But because of COVID, we get to be virtual, so I get a chance to read with my Chicago peeps from down here in Florida. So that's September 12th. And I also got to plug Kitchen Table, which is the Literary Arts Center I run here in Tampa. And we have some virtual events coming up. We read How to Love a Jamaican, and we're talking about that this Saturday. And you can get all that information at kitchen-table.org.
Actually, okay, I meant to ask you about Kitchen Table. Can you just tell us about it a bit?
Yeah. I started it in 2014. After, like I mentioned, you leave school or you leave a literary city like Chicago, and then you find yourself maybe in this pocket that, you got to kind of be like, well, where are all the writers at? And then I found the writers, but then I was like, well, damn, where are all the Black writers at? And so creating Kitchen Table was a chance to kind of call them out, and just under this belief that what I was searching for was searching for me, and that happened to be the case. And so named it Kitchen Table to sort of be that be a homage to Kitchen Table Press, which was founded in 1980 and publishing Black women and women of color for the first time. And so we kind of carry that tradition with Kitchen Table, which we do creative writing classes and workshops, all geared to supporting and showcasing Black women and women of color writers. And so because of coronavirus, we've been putting a lot more of our workshops and things online. We were just able to offer free online creative writing classes to 40 Black women writers about a month ago. And so that was a beautiful experience. So just trying to find ways to, like, my writing is me at the desk or with my journal or at the keyboard. Kitchen Table is me out in the world with my people, with my family, with my community. And I receive so much from them, and I just try to pour that back out. So yeah, that's what we're doing down here.
So fucking dope. Thank you for that. And that's kitchen-table.org. Mm-hmm. And your website is ShereeLGreer.com,
yep.
Which is ShereeLGreer.com. And where are you on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook? How can folks get you?
Sheree L. Greer on all the socials.
Yes,
keep it simple.
So, well, thanks again for coming on.
Thank y'all so much.
You've been awesome.
It's been really wonderful. Thank y'all so much.
Yay. And that's it for this week's episode of The Turn On. Thank y'all for joining us, and we'll be back next week.
Bye.
This episode was produced by us, Kenrya and Erica, and edited by Ballistic. The theme music is from Brazy. Now you can support The Turn On and get off. Subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, then drop us a 5-star review, and you'll be entered to win something that's turning us on. Just post your review and email us a screenshot at theturnonpodcast@gmail.com to enter. Our Patreon page is also live. Become a supporter today and you'll gain access to lots of goodies, including the Turn On Book Club and 2-for-1 raffle entries. And don't forget to send us your book recommendations and your sex and related questions. And follow us on Twitter at The Turn On Pod and Instagram at The Turn On Podcast. You can find links to books, merch, transcripts, guest info, and other fun stuff at theturnonpodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you soon. Bye.